Warning, this podcast contains explicit sexual language and should only be listened to at work if you're looking for an excuse to connect with your HR representative. Additionally, all mentions of the word women include cis, trans, NB, genderqueer, gender fluid, and those still figuring it out. Yes, you are welcome here.
Will you open up with me? These pages, they can feed your innermost desires. Do you feel inspired? Are you getting what you need? Are you coming curiously? A secret safe with me. And here you can simply be yourself. Jace reads romance. Come on in, come on in, come on.
Hi, y'all. This is Jace, she, they, and you found Jace Reads Romance, a community dedicated to empowering women about sex and sexuality through the reading of romance novels. I have been waiting for this episode for literal months, literally months of planning, of waiting, of, is this the right time? No, maybe not yet. Is this the right time? I don't know. And it is finally here. We are going to talk about the clitoris.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the idea behind this episode is both sad and exciting. As many of you know, I've been reading romance novels for multiple decades. And I actually started reading romance novels, and especially sexually explicit romance novels, before I myself participated in any sexual activity. So the sex that I was learning about, the sex that I was engaging in, was happening in between the pages of my romance novels, in the pages of Cosmo. Yeah, Cosmo. Or potentially porn in the early days of the internet when it took a really long time to download anything.
No.
So not really anything that spectacular. And even less so at this time from the experiences of my peers. Like, if I had very few peers experiencing sex, just like I wasn't experiencing sex. So our information was coming from other places. Friends of mine who had older siblings maybe had talks with them. Oh my gosh, personal information about me. I don't have older siblings, so I was the first. Or even now that I'm thinking about it, those, what's happening to your body books that you read during puberty to explain the changes, and they kind of went over what sex was in the mechanics. But in terms of learning about a sexual relationship, and especially sexual satisfaction, that was not happening around me. The most satisfying sex I was around was what was happening in romance novels. And at the time, all of them had this idea of the magical penis that spontaneous orgasms erupted from, with no mention of clitoral stimulation, very little oral sex. It was pretty much just penis into vagina intercourse. And the orgasms were quick and plentiful.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So those were the sexual relationships that I was seeing. Or even if I was seeing maybe an R-rated movie, those are also depicted as pretty much penis into vagina, spontaneous orgasm. And and I get it. You gotta really get that done. You cannot have the 11 minutes that it typically takes, or to have a sexual experience with a partner, typically. You gotta make it into that 90-minute movie. But it meant that when, especially with early partners, and like, thank God for early partners where none of us knew what we were doing. And I'm very lucky in that they were just as clueless, but incredibly kind through these experiences. I had no idea sex could be anything other than penis into vagina, and you hoped you had an orgasm, because the reality of most women and what we were being fed, we humans, especially women in the late 90s, early aughts, about our sex life and our sexual satisfaction was women are really hard to please.
Yeah.
And it just like won't happen for you. Sorry. that was it. It's your fault. And that's true. And Seffi, if you had a different experience, and I know you had a slightly different upbringing than I did, I grew up in a community that wasn't purity based in itself. There was no shame in the people that were close to me or who were raising me or I was interacting with about experiencing sex and sexuality and sexual feelings at a post-pubescent age. That's what I'm going to go with. A post-pubescent age, when those hormones are going and they're creating these feelings for the first time. There was no, you have to save yourself to marriage. There was no, oh, you're ruined if you have sex. I didn't experience that. So in that way, I'm very lucky.
You are extremely lucky.
I'm extremely lucky that the only, witnessing of that kind of mostly Christian, based in Christianity, purity culture was ones that I saw in the media, and I went, good thing that's not me and mine.
Yeah, no, that like once I hit high school, I remember every year there was this I think that's what it's called, True Love Waits conference. It was like a weekend. And my youth group went every yeir, and that was the whole thing, is purity culture. Save yourself till marriage, so you find the right person. Make sure you're in a relationship with Jesus, and this other person is in a relationship with Jesus, so everything is holy, and that's how it's gonna go. And that was it. Like, there was no talk about like what happens when you actually get to the moment where you're going to actually like interact with each other in an intimate and sexual way. Like, there's nothing.
It's so horrifying to me. So horrifying. Like, what do you do if you're I'm gonna generalize, but what if you get married right out of high school? You're 18, your partner's 18, and you've never, it's never been explained to you what is about to happen. Just, I know. Like, how do you get from maybe you've held hands before?
Right.
To, I mean, and there are, oh my gosh, they're just like, it's insane to me that you are expected to go from A all the way to X.
Right.
On a day. Like,
on a day.
On a day.
Yep. Yeah, because you're supposed to, consummate the marriage on their wedding night.
Marriage.
Yeah.
Maybe your first kiss is at your wedding.
Right.
My guess is you've never masturbated. You don't know what sexual arousal even feels like. I mean, you've probably had a crush, but like not necessarily sexual arousal brought on by connecting with another human.
Right. Yeah.
So
the rebellions that it caused within myself, I know, just like, I mean, I bucked against it so hard. Like, I ended up finding ways to masturbate and get away with it without anybody finding out. Like, I'm just gonna say it, I'm really good at being quiet when I want to be.
Yeah. So here's this idea, and it's so interesting because I remember from all of that thinking the way to masturbate was penetration. I don't know if this was something that you thought, like that masturbation equaled penetration because sex equaled penetration. That's what I read. That's what I was being taught. Those are the things that,
Yeah.
occurred to me in mine.
Mhm.
And so most masturbation is not penetration.
No,
No, it's not. It's
No.
not. And so this conversation that we're going to have is about the clitoris and the clitoris during intercourse, how it's represented and how it exists in real life. And I will be referencing not necessarily romance novels,
Mhm.
because what I have found is the description of stimulating the clit during intercourse, which is specifically what this conversation is going to be about, is very fucking boring. Like, they're not described. It's not in detail. I need to do an episode on the absolute magic that these authors come up with when it comes to oral sex on women, on a vulva, someone just going to fucking town and feasting on a
Mhm.
vulva. Oh my gosh, the magic that they create. But often when it comes to clit stimulation during intercourse, and he reached around and touched her clit. Like,
Yeah.
cool. Now, why I'm making an entire episode about this is it was an unfortunate number of years past when I became sexually active with partners that I read for the first time about someone stimulating a clit during intercourse. Not from a partner, not from myself. I thought it was rude if you touched yourself during intercourse. Like, that must be rude. Guy's doing his thing. You're supposed to orgasm, or just you don't orgasm during penetrative sex. Why would you stick a hand down there? And it wasn't until I read it in a romance novel that I went, are you fucking kidding me?
Oh man. Oh
Y'all, I
man.
wish you could see Seffi's face. There's like absolute pity on her face.
Like, and
And
horror. Like, pity and horror.
yes. And I won't say that this is the fault of my partners, because they grew up in the same
Yeah.
context that I did.
Mhm.
And I remember even watching, when the internet got a little bit better, watching porn at those ages, and no one's touching a clit during intercourse. No one's doing any of that. No messaging that I was receiving was, you can also
Mhm.
stimulate the thing you by the time this happened, I was, masturbating correctly and achieving orgasm through, clit stimulation. Let's say that. It's not their, it wasn't their fault. It wasn't my partner's fault. It wasn't my fault that it didn't occur to me, because you don't know what you don't know. And I want to really celebrate the fact that many of the books that I'm reading are stepping away from that.
Mhm.
And yes, in romance novels, we are a phrase that I heard is, you can't please everybody from an author, was, you can't please everybody, you can only please your FMC. I'm like, yes, thank you so much.
I love that. I love that.
I was like, it was in response to a really inappropriate question. And I will praise that author. So thank you so much for, instead of throttling the person who asked you an inappropriate question like I would have done, you
Right.
responded with grace and poise. But you can only satisfy your FMC. You can't satisfy everyone. But being realistic in the ways that an FMC is most likely going to be satisfied, so that as a person with a vulva who is having intercourse, it's not just, oh, well, she's had 5 orgasms from penetration alone. My vulva's broken, because I can't do that.
Right. Yep. Exactly.
That's what it feels like when all the messages you get are sex with a penis. And this, for people who are not heterosexual and you have sex with other people without penises, or by yourself, this is very different. But this conversation is really geared towards penetration, and And, hell on, you could be two people with a vulva and using a dildo or using a strap-on. So
Yeah.
we're talking about penetration.
Yeah.
But seeing how women or people with vulvas actually can achieve orgasm during sex with penetration is a huge step in the right direction.
Yes.
I am going to reference some actual information. I don't study sex. I do not have a higher degree in sex. Though I kind of wish I did. I would love to go back and be like, let's talk about orgasms all the time. But I am going to be referencing the book Come As You Are by Emily Nagoski pretty often in this conversation. Not that she is the be all end all. She has done incredible things. This book is very fucking funny. If you're looking for a book that's also a fun read, this is. She has another book, Come As You Are. There are other books out there on female sexuality and all of this stuff. And I'm going to touch on a very small portion of this book, the literal anatomy of the vulva and clit, and also orgasm and why it is important and why it isn't important. All right, y'all. So that's the book that I will link in the show notes. But here's what we're going to eventually move into. I started to notice when I started reading for context that not all books, even today, have clit stimulation during penetration or intercourse. I'm just going to say intercourse. Y'all know what I mean because I've just explained what I'm talking about. I'm saying intercourse. I mean penetration, usually a penis, but it could be a strap-on, could be a dildo, but typically penis. Not all of them involve stimulating the clit. And that's still part of this culture that we have of what is a vulva supposed to be doing?
Yeah.
What does it mean to enjoy sex? What does it mean to enjoy sex with a partner? What does it mean as a woman in so many ways?
Yeah.
But I started taking note of the books that did mention it. Who's doing the stimulating? Because y'all, like, we could talk and I don't want to badmouth authors who don't put a little reach around action in their books. That's not the point. Let's actually talk about stimulating clits during sex. And I'm curious who does it. Because I only have my own experience, which is not the point of this conversation. And I have romance novels where I literally keep a tally of every time it happens in a scene, who's doing what. All right.
I'm so ready. Let's go.
All right. So if y'all didn't know much about female anatomy, and for those of you who are intersex, not obviously, but your anatomy is going to be different. I'm talking about our cisgendered anatomy of a vulva. The clit is often viewed as this little button at the top of the vagina. Teeny tiny. It's got a hood. It's this little thing. And it's not.
No.
It's not. Yes, that's part of it. But that's like saying the tip of the iceberg is the whole iceberg.
Yeah, exactly.
Whole iceberg. Now, your clitoris is incredibly sensitive. It's where like 80 to 90% of your sensation will come from. Its sole purpose is pleasure and sensation. So congratulations, people with vulvas. If you have a functioning clit, like its only goal is to make you feel good. Kind of like your teeth can only feel pain, your clit can only feel good sensation, probably bad sensation. Don't bite it. Unless you like that. But in general, don't bite. And then it expands. There are glands that reach down into your labia, inner and outer, as well as potentially into your anterior vaginal wall. And this is kind of where maybe people were thinking this is the first G-spot, or what is that? It's maybe stimulating the clit from the inside. And that's a different conversation. I'm not getting into that. I have a whole book on like G-spot and female ejaculation that I will, I'm sure, do an episode on. But that is not today. Today is just understanding what is your clit, where it is, and why it's really important that we talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Safi, do you have any questions about the anatomy of a clitoris?
No, Professor Jace, I do not.
Thank you. God, I fucking wish. I fucking wish. If I had the time or money to get a master's degree, just like studying this, I absolutely would. Who wants a PhD in human sexuality?
I mean, Kinsey did it for a reason.
There's an institute. I know, y'all. It's a thing.
Hold on.
Yes.
I do want to say, and Michael, you can put this where you think it might work, but just when we were talking about like the purity culture that I grew up in,
yes.
I remember one of my college roommates was getting married, and she bought a book called, I think it was Worship Music. And
a book called Worship Music.
And I remember her saying like it talked about how we should like stimulate the clitoris during sex so that it feels better. And her mind was blown. Like her mind was blown. We were in college. This was like 2009. Like I was like 20. I'm not even kidding.
I will not lie to you. I was older than that. I was older than that the first time I read about someone stimulating the clit during sex.
Mm-hmm.
My poor fucking partners, like they really did their best. They did their best. And I was like, it's fine. I'm enjoying myself. We're connecting on a like spiritual and emotional level. And I'll just like go down on me before you fuck me. Like I have a broken vagina and there's nothing you can do about it.
Right. When that was obviously not the case. It was just a broken knowledge set.
Broken culture. So here's where we get some of that misunderstanding of how women's anatomy works. If you didn't know this, when humans are growing in a womb, they start off as all female. Yeah, y'all.
Yeah.
All women. Men are the weird ones. And what starts as our clit turns into the penis on a man.
Yeah.
So it also has glands. They add in some extra like stuff that it has to do. So unlike the clit on a woman, which is like solely sensation, or unlike the clit on a vulva, which is solely sensation, the penis also has to urinate, it has to ejaculate, and it has to like do a couple other things. But because we live in this fucking patriarchal society where men were doctors and men were researchers, and we don't want to do anything with women because they're hormonal and complicated, and men are the genetic or whatever normal. No, you're fucking not. It's women. Shut the fuck up. It's why you're missing some DNA. So so the assumption is that vagina and penis are the same thing. And even now scientists are like, clit and penis are the same thing, but they're not.
No.
They're not. And even though they come from a very similar place and there are a lot of similarities, you cannot equate what happens to one with what should happen to the other. Both the penis and the clit get hard and get wet when sexually aroused, but like, we don't talk about how the clitoris gets engorged and hard when sexually aroused. And we don't often talk about how penises start to lubricate when they get aroused as well. It's hard and wet, as you know, that's what they do. And the whole penis gets stimulated during intercourse, vaginal intercourse. and can ejaculate. So if you are stuck in this, vagina and penis are the same thing, and a penis can achieve orgasm from intercourse, then a vagina should achieve orgasm through intercourse. And that is wrong. That's not how our anatomy works. And so shedding this idea of what works for men should work for women is really paramount in owning that women and our anatomy, vulvas, the whole shebang functions differently and needs to be treated differently is a huge, huge thing.
It's almost like women have autonomy and like their own bodies. What?
What? That's so crazy.
I mean, it goes back to the whole idea that when you were talking, all I could think about was how men used to believe that women shouldn't ride on trains because the trains would go too fast and their uteruses would like
or that hysteria was when the uterus moved in your body.
The body moved around. Yeah.
Moved around your body. Let's talk about that hot crock pot full of crazy, okay? So when it comes to sexuality and intimacy, I want to just high level state that the goal of sex can be many things. It can be connection with your partner. It can be procreation. If I don't know, but like from what I've heard, y'all, the worst sex you'll ever have is sex that is intended to create a human, because it's not about connection and it's not about pleasure.
Yeah, I've heard that too.
Put some sperm in a body.
Yeah. I have heard the exact same thing. And I'm like, that makes me want to have children even less.
So the goal of sex can be multifaceted, and orgasm isn't necessarily the be all end all of pleasure, of connection, of sex. However, it feels really good. And it comes with a lot of baggage, as we've already talked about, from women's bodies being broken. And, you should be satisfied by just my penis alone because I'm a man and my penis is magical, to like all the purity. And women, even if you're in a marriage, are not supposed to enjoy sex because sex is sinful, and like sex is only for you and Jesus and babies. And if you enjoy sex, that in and of itself is a sin. Y'all, it's so fucked up. Whew. So I'm going to use Emily Nagoski's definition of what orgasm is, which is: orgasm is the sudden, involuntary release of sexual tension. That's it. Because
that is really simple, and I like it.
It's really simple because there are people who can achieve orgasm from penetration alone. There are people who can achieve orgasm from nipple stimulation, from other types of stimulation, from toe sucking, from dirty talk, from watching their partner get off. There are so many things, which leads me to the thing that I know, y'all. Orgasm is primarily centered in the brain. I get it. And it's about connection, and it's about being present, and it's about being able to enjoy all of these things and not be burdened by the fucking bullshit that we've already touched on, or, your to-do list, or your groceries, or your laundry, or that shitty thing your boss said to you, or, like, oh my God, do I have to pee? Is the lighting correct? Is the rest of my body attractive enough? There's so much bullshit going on. And yes, a lot of challenges with orgasm achievement are mental, but it doesn't help when your partner or you aren't doing the things physically that can satisfy you with orgasm.
Yeah.
So if you have sex with a partner and it's really just about connecting physically, or maybe you're on medication that makes orgasm really hard to achieve, and therefore that's not what you want to think about, that is totally fine. What this conversation today is about is taking away the stigma that penetration alone should satisfy you is
Yeah.
the only way to have a good, clean, pure orgasm. Yes, those are things that have been said about clitoral stimulated orgasms. And that we should be taking ownership ourselves and also teaching our partners how to do these things when we're intimate together. That it's not their penis isn't great, but that my anatomy is different.
Yes.
And something just to touch on, because I mentioned the clit, but the vagina in general, that vaginal canal, most of it doesn't have a lot of sensational nerve endings.
Yeah.
Most of that 4-inch canal, let's not get ahead of ourselves. It's fucking 4 inches long.
Yeah. Just
4 inches.
Sidebar, all of these books and fanfics that are like, he had a 12-inch cock. I'm like, fucking no thanks. Like, I don't think you guys don't realize that's painful to even just consider.
So, like, yes, connection with your partner. Yes, there's a lot of mental shit that goes on with it. There's a lot of life shit that goes on with whether or not you're going to achieve orgasm. However, not understanding how a vulva differs from a penis and how we can achieve orgasm more with more frequency is not going to do you or your partner any service. All of my partners, try as they might, could not get me to achieve orgasm through vaginal penetration alone. There's nothing wrong with them. They gave it their all. They gave it the old college try, and then a few years after college, like they did their best. And it's not their fault that even these dudes, the dudes like didn't know what to do. So
it really isn't, because they grew up in the same culture that we did. So they have the same like restrictive knowledge that we
except
grew
their
up
penis
with.
is sacred. Our vaginas are disgusting and dirty.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
so number one,
it's unfortunate, but yes.
Yeah. Your vagina, your vulva is perfect. Unless you're experiencing pain, go to your doctor. But your vagina is perfect just the way that it is. However it looks aesthetically, it's doing just fine. Let's not shame the size of our labias, inner or outer. But here's the deal. When women or people with vulvas, I'm going to say vulva, I'm saying women, anyone with vulva, people with vulvas are masturbating, 80 to 90% of the time, they're doing it through clit stimulation alone.
Yep.
So what does that tell us about achieving orgasm with a partner who's trying to make us achieve orgasm through penetration alone? That's not fair to them. It's not fair to us.
No.
It's like, what was the great...
It's like there's a second half of the situation missing.
Like, so there was a study done that showed that less than a third of women are reliably having orgasms during penetration alone. That's not even always. That's, more than 50%.
Yeah, exactly.
And 2/3 of women are sometimes rarely or never achieving orgasm through penetration alone.
Yeah.
It's not your penises, guys. It's not. It's the patriarchy. It's you haven't been taught how, it's not even that you haven't been taught how to use your penis correctly. It's that you haven't been taught what a woman's anatomy is.
Exactly.
It's not your fault.
No.
So let's just get this out of the way. People with penises, not your fault.
Now, let me say, if you realize that if you are someone with a penis and you realize that something's not right, but then you don't go out of your way to figure out how to fix it and make it better for your partner, then it's your fault.
Yeah, if you listen to this episode and then are like, you know what, I'm kind of okay with my partner never having an orgasm and it's just all about me. That's a problem. That's a you problem.
Yes.
That's an I hope you never get laid again problem.
Exactly.
So, but it also means that historically, men's pleasure is the default pleasure. So if it works for a man, it should work for a woman. Not, I can't even say that without so many feelings coming out of my face.
So much.
Just so wrong. Okay, here's a quote. I'm going to read this quote because I highlighted it. I put an exclamation point in there. Oh, man. But if women's expected kind of orgasm is whatever men experience, then that should be clitoral stimulation, since anatomically, the clitoris is the homologue of the penis. All right? Remember? Clitoris turned into penis, but less good and not only for sensation. So if we're trying to be like women are like men, then it should be all about the clit. To say that women, okay, I'm going to continue. Less feelings. Fewer feelings here. To say that women should have orgasms from vaginal penetration is anatomically equivalent to saying that men should have orgasms from prostate or perineal stimulation. Now they can, yes. And many do, yes. Absolutely. But even I read a lot of MM. I do. I love some MM action. Even if you're getting fucked in the ass, usually someone's like, yeah, I'm going to jerk you off too, or jerk yourself off while I'm fucking you in the ass. Yes. So dudes fucking other dudes aren't even like, yeah, we shouldn't stimulate the thing that makes orgasm easier to achieve at all. No, they're like, hey, it would be easier for you to come if we touched your penis at the same time I'm fucking you in the ass. Okay. Mm-hmm. But the problem is, and this is another sentence, I'm like, this is so sad because it's true. Men's pleasure is the default pleasure.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not just about sex. That's really about everything.
It's the whole idea of lay back and think of England. Like that's what women were made to do.
As usual, Seffi and I cannot be contained. When we get on a topic, we just roll with it. Since we didn't want to overwhelm you, we are splitting this into 2 episodes. Part 1 is complete, but not satisfied. Part 2 is where we will conclude, have a little death. How many orgasm metaphors can I throw into this? Next week. So come on back. That's it for today, y'all. This has been a 3 Paws Productions podcast. Our producer is Seffi. Michael Achenbach is our patient editor. Our theme song is written and performed by Diana Weishauer. You can find show notes and so much more at jacereadsromance.com. That's JAYCE Reads Romance. Follow along on TikTok and Instagram at Jace Reads Romance. If you'd like to ask a question or share a story for the podcast, call and leave a message at 661-JACE-RR. That's 661-529-2377. Or send an email to jace@jacereadsromance.com. Finally, like and subscribe so you can get every episode when they drop. You can also leave us a review to help others find us. And remember, this is Jace holding space for you.